Mafia boss Vincent Moretti checked the security cameras at his restaurant and could not believe his eyes. What he saw on that footage would change everything. The November rain hammered against the windows of the upscale Italian restaurant in the view's car like fists demanding entry. Vincent sat alone in his private booth at the back, the one no one else was permitted to occupy, his laptop open in the shadows. The glow cast his face in shades of blue and grey. He was 47 years old, with dark hair silvered at the temples, a scar running from his left eye down to his cheekbone like a permanent reminder of the price loyalty extracted. His suit was tailored charcoal, the kind that costs more than most people's monthly rent. A gold Rolex caught the light on his wrist. But his eyes were empty. The eyes of a man who had learned long ago that trust was a luxury he could not afford. He had watched this footage 17 times. 17. His finger hovered over the keyboard, index finger poised above the play button, though he had memorized every second. Every frame was burned into his memory the way certain images burn themselves into the back of a man's mind and refuse to leave. 3 weeks ago. September. Right here in this very restaurant. He pressed play. The security camera angle showed the corner near the wine cellar entrance, a blind spot most people would never notice. But Vincent noticed everything. He had learned to notice everything the night his brother, Marco, decided that family honor meant nothing compared to $50,000 in a briefcase. On screen, Marcus Webb emerged from the shadows. 49 years old. Expensive haircut. The kind of man who wore cruelty like cologne. He carried a folder, manila, thick with documents. Behind him, moving with the practiced grace of someone born into money, came Evelyn Blackwell. 61. Hair dyed blonde, pulled back so tight it stretched the skin around her temples. Diamond earrings that caught the light. A woman who had never worked a day in her life but had somehow acquired 6 luxury properties and a reputation for business acumen. What people did not know was that her business model was simple: find desperate women with children, offer them housing at impossible rates, tighten the noose, collect their lives. They sat at a table, unaware of the camera mounted in the decorative rosette above their heads. Vincent turned up the volume. 65,000 in 10 days or the girl loses everything. Marcus Webb's voice, low and practiced. The kid goes to the state. Clean and easy. Evelyn laughed. A sound like breaking glass. I have 4 other properties we can run the same way. These desperate single mothers are gold mines. They have no family. No one to protect them. No one even knows they exist. The words hit Vincent in the chest like bullets. He knew that desperation. Not from living it, but from watching it. He had worn it on his own face the night his brother Marco sold their family to the Castellano syndicate for cash. $50,000. That was the price his brother had put on their father's life. That was the currency of betrayal. Vincent's hands went white at the knuckles. His jaw tightened so hard his teeth ached. He paused the video. On screen, frozen in time, was Evelyn's smile. Predatory. Satisfied. The smile of someone who knew they operated in the spaces where law enforcement did not reach, in the cracks between compassion and indifference. He had no idea yet that the woman his convoy would find broken down on the interstate in exactly 43 minutes was the same woman these predators were hunting. He had no idea that her name was Aria Hartley. He had no idea that she was sleeping in a 2008 Honda Civic with her 7-year-old daughter, with $34 in her pocket, with a worn prayer card clutched in her hand like it was the last piece of her soul she had not yet surrendered. He had no idea that tonight would be the night everything changed. Vincent closed the laptop. The screen went black. The room was so quiet you could hear the rain against the glass, each drop a separate percussion in the November night. The city beyond the windows was sleeping. The streets of New Orleans were empty, washed clean and dark. He picked up his phone. Speed dial. 3 rings. Sergio. His voice was deep and solid like an oath. Get the cars ready. We are going out. Sergio, his lieutenant for 15 years, did not ask questions. Questions were not permitted in Vincent's world. Yes, boss. Where? I do not know yet. But something is pulling me into the storm. The line went dead. Vincent stood, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate precision. He walked to the window and placed his palm against the glass. The cold was sharp, immediate, real. The November night pressed against him from the other side of the window like a living thing. Like something breathing. He thought of his brother one last time. Then he pushed the thought away. Outside, he could hear the engines of the black SUVs starting. For vehicles. 12 men total. Each man dressed in suits that cost more than some people earned in a year. Each man carrying weapons they had learned to use with precision. Each man bound to Vincent by a code older than laws, older than morality, older than mercy. They would follow him into the storm. They would follow him anywhere. But Vincent did not know yet that tonight, they would witness something they had never seen before. Tonight, in a moment of pure chance, the Mafia boss would look into the terrified eyes of a desperate woman and see his own past staring back at him. And something frozen inside him, something that had calcified 15 years ago with his brother's betrayal, would begin to crack. The November rain hammered down. The city slept. And on the rain-soaked interstate, a woman with nothing but prayer and $34 was about to learn that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected directions. Sometimes it comes wrapped in a black suit and a gold watch. Sometimes it comes from the man you should fear most. Aria Hartley had not slept in 43 hours. She had not eaten since yesterday morning, unless you counted the cold French fries she had stolen from a customer's plate at the diner where she worked the graveyard shift. The taste of salt and old oil still lingered on her tongue. She had not showered since Tuesday. The calendar on her phone, cracked across the screen, showed that today was Thursday. November. The worst month. She sat in the passenger seat of her 2008 Honda Civic with the engine off, watching the rain blur the windshield into abstract shapes. The car had been her home for 6 weeks now. Before that, it had been an efficiency apartment. Before that, a shelter. Before that, lies. In the back seat, her daughter Lily was curled up on the passenger seat with a jacket as a pillow, 7 years old and somehow still capable of sleeping through anything. Her breathing was even and deep, the breathing of a child whose innocence had not yet been completely shattered. Aria watched her daughter the way mothers watch precious things that might disappear. The way a woman watches the last good thing in her life. Aria had $34 in her wallet. Not $34 plus something. $34 exactly. She had counted it 4 times tonight, hoping the numbers would change, hoping she had somehow miscalculated. But the math never lied. $34 would need to stretch for at least another 7 days. That was $5 per day. She could make that work. Diner coffee was $2. A hot meal from the employee discount, if she was careful and her boss was not paying attention, could cost as little as $3. That left $0 for gas, for Lily's school lunch, for the medications for her asthma that were supposed to be refilled 3 days ago. The price of staying alive was getting more expensive every single day. She looked down at her hands. 29 years old. They looked older. The skin was cracked and dry from washing dishes at the diner, from the chemical cleaners she used at night for her second job, from the constant exposure to water and cold. Her nails were broken. There was a permanent dark stain under her index finger that no amount of scrubbing would remove. Her phone buzzed. She did not need to look at it to know who it was. She knew the rhythm of the buzzes by now. Aggressive. Demanding. Like something alive and angry. She looked anyway. Marcus Webb. The landlord. The man who had held her lease on that efficiency apartment for 2 years, the man who had slowly raised the rent from $800 a month to $1,400. The man who had finally, 3 months ago, told her that if she could not pay, he would be forced to evict her and file a report with Child Protective Services. She knew what he meant. He meant he would take Lily away. He meant he would scatter what was left of her life across the pavement like trash. The message was 2 words long: final notice. Below that, a video attachment. She did not open it. She did not need to. She had already watched the video 3 times. It was footage from her own eviction, recorded 6 weeks ago. 2 men in the hallway. Boxes on the street. Lily crying. Everything she owned piled on the curb like garbage waiting for collection. Below the video, a photograph. A number. $65,000. He had added a deadline, 10 days. Aria set the phone down. Her hands were shaking. The November rain pressed against the car like it was trying to get in, like it was trying to find every seal, every crack, and exploit it. The wind howled. The car rocked slightly with each gust. She gripped the steering wheel even though the car was off, even though they were not going anywhere. She thought about the prayer card in her pocket. Her grandmother's prayer card, the only thing she had managed to salvage from her mother's house before everything fell apart. She pulled it out. The edges were soft and worn from years of handling. The text was faded. St. Jude. The prayer for hopeless cases. She had whispered this prayer so many times the words had become part of her breath. The wind outside was getting worse. She could hear it now, not just feel it. A roaring sound, like something alive and furious. She should start the engine. She should try to find shelter. But shelter required money, and money was something she did not have. She closed her eyes and pressed the prayer card to her chest. 43 minutes away, Vincent Moretti was climbing into the back of a black SUV. The rain was so heavy the wipers could not keep up. His driver, a man named Sal who had been with him for 12 years, navigated the empty streets with precision. North or south, boss? Sal asked. Interstate, Vincent said. Toward the state line. He did not know why. He only knew that something was pulling him into the storm, some instinct older than reason, some sense that told him the answer to the footage was waiting for him out there in the rain and the darkness. The convoy of black SUVs cut through the November night like a knife through silk, powerful and silent and absolute. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you do not miss what is coming tomorrow. Now, let us go back and understand how 2 people on a collision course with destiny were about to meet in the worst possible moment and change each other forever. 3 hours before the black convoy cut through the November rain, Aria Hartley sat in the driver's seat of her 2008 Honda Civic with $23 spread across the passenger seat like a death sentence. $1 bills. A 5. 17 more crumpled into the cup holder. Her fingers trembled as she counted them again, though she already knew the sum. $34. That was everything. That was what stood between her daughter and the street. The car was parked behind the Greyhound station in the shadows where the light from the street lamps could not reach. She had been sleeping here for 4 months. For months of folding the front seat down, of rationing a single tank of gas across 2 weeks, of teaching herself to breathe quietly so Lily would not wake and see her crying in the dark. The windows were fogged with condensation. Inside, the air smelled like desperation and wet fabric and the faint ghost of the vanilla air freshener she had hung there so long ago when she still believed in things like freshness and air and days that did not taste like copper. Lily slept across the back seat, curled into a shape like a question mark, wrapped in 2 blankets and Aria's only winter coat. The child's breathing was deep and even, the kind of sleep that only children could manage, unconscious of the woman sitting motionless in the front seat holding her own breath. Aria did not turn to look at her. If she looked at Lily's face, she would think about what the text message said. And if she thought about what the text message said, her hands would start shaking again and they would not stop. Her phone buzzed at 10:41 p.m. The screen lit up green in the darkness. Marcus Webb. Her landlord. The man who owned the apartment she no longer lived in, the one he had evicted her from 4 months earlier. The one he claimed she still owed money for, phantom damages, phantom fees, phantom violations that existed only in his ledgers and his cruelty. $65,000. She read the text 3 times. $65,000. 10 days. Or I file the eviction and call CPS. You know what happens to Lily then? The phone felt like it was burning in her palm. $65,000. The rent had been $1,200 a month when she lived in that apartment. When she lived anywhere. $1,200 per month for a place with water stains on the ceiling and a lock on the refrigerator because Marcus's other tenants would steal her food when she was at work. She had paid every cent. Every single month. She had worked double shifts at the diner, loading boxes at the warehouse at midnight, standing on her feet for 16 hours because standing was free and sleeping in a car cost nothing and Lily needed to eat. And then the notices came. Back fees. Fabricated damages. Legal costs that appeared like ghosts in official letters with official letterheads. $100 here. $200 there. Then $2,000. Then $5,000. Then $30,000 in a single notice that arrived on a Thursday morning and changed everything. She had 15 days to pay or leave. She left on day 14. Now Marcus Webb was texting her from wherever he sat in his climate-controlled office, surrounded by mahogany and leather and the kind of silence that money could buy. Now he was telling her that he owned not just the apartment but also her future. That he owned her. That he could call a single number and take Lily away from her and there was nothing she could do because she had $34 and he had lawyers and the law was written by people who looked like him. Aria pulled the prayer card from the glove compartment. It was the only thing she had managed to salvage from her mother's house before the foreclosure. St. Jude. The patron saint of lost causes. The edges were soft from 1,000 desperate touches. The text was faded almost to nothing. She whispered the words anyway, the same words she whispered every morning and every night, the words that had become part of her breath. At 11 p.m., she drove to the Shell station on Claiborne Avenue. The fluorescent lights inside the bathroom flickered like a heartbeat failing. The mirror was spotted with rust around the edges. She ran water that was too cold and washed her face, trying not to see herself. Trying not to see the exhaustion, the hollows under her eyes, the bruises on her arms from loading boxes at the warehouse. From the manager's hands when he cornered her in the break room and told her that if she wanted the extra shifts she would have to be nicer to him. From saying no. From his response to that no. She had worked 43 hours that week. $9 per hour. Never benefits. Never overtime pay. Never anything but the threat that if she complained, there were 100 women waiting for her shift. The paper towels were rough against her skin. She dried her face and tried to breathe steadily. In 4 hours, she had a midnight shift at the warehouse. If she could work tonight and tomorrow night and the next night, she could make maybe $200. In 10 days, she might accumulate $1,000. Then what? She would still be $34,000 short and 4 days out of time. She got back in the car. Lily was still asleep. She drove toward the warehouse. Interstate entrance ramp. The rain had started again, that soft kind of rain that seemed gentle until you realized it would not stop. Until you realized it was getting heavier. The engine light came on at the bottom of the ramp. Orange light blooming on the dashboard. Then a sound. A grinding sound from underneath. Aria felt her stomach drop. She eased the car onto the shoulder as smoke started rising from under the hood. Not much smoke. Just enough to say that everything was broken. Just enough to say that one more thing had failed. She tried the ignition. Nothing. She tried again. Nothing. The rain was getting worse. The water was rising on the highway, spreading across the lanes like spilled wine. Headlights blurred past, their drivers not seeing her, not knowing there was a woman and a child drowning slowly on the shoulder of an interstate highway while the November rain fell like a curse that could not be lifted. Lily woke up crying. "Mama, I'm cold," the child said. 6 years old. Small voice. The word mama cut through Aria's chest like a blade. She pulled Lily into the front seat and wrapped both of them in the 2 blankets and her coat. The car was getting colder. The windows were fogging. Outside, The rain hammered against the glass, and Aria sat there holding her daughter, both of them shivering, watching the red lights of the cars ahead disappear into the darkness and the water. She tried the engine 3 more times. Nothing. She pulled out her phone. No money for a tow truck. The cheapest one in the city was $85. She had 34. She had no family. Her mother was dead. Her father had disappeared when she was 3. There was no one to call. No safety net. No person on earth who was obligated to care whether she lived or died or froze to death on the side of a highway with her 6-year-old daughter wrapped in a winter coat that had not been warm in 2 years. The prayer card fell onto the floor mat. She picked it up and pressed it to her chest. The card was so soft it was almost falling apart. St. Jude. The prayer for hopeless cases. She whispered the words. Please, she said. Just one. Just one miracle. The rain got heavier. The wind started moving through the night like something alive and furious. And 3 miles away, Vincent Moretti was watching security footage that had nothing to do with her, footage that would lead him straight toward her, footage that would change both of their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. In his restaurant in the View's car, in a back office surrounded by mahogany and leather and the kind of silence that money could buy, Vincent sat alone watching surveillance video from the week before. His security system was the best money could buy. 8 cameras covering every inch of the dining room. 8 angles of every conversation, every transaction, every moment. He was watching the footage from Tuesday night. His Lieutenant Sal stood in the doorway, jacket still wet from the rain. They had been together for 12 years. Sal had seen Vincent Moretti angry, violent, ruthless, cold. He had never seen him still like this. Still in a way that was worse than any anger. What is it? Sal asked. Vincent did not answer. He rewound the footage. Tuesday night. 9:24 p.m. 2 people in booth 7. Marcus Webb, that predatory landlord with the silk tie and the soft hands. And a woman. Evelyn Blackwell. Wealthy. Connected. The kind of woman who appeared at charity galas and on museum boards and whose family money had been buying silence for 40 years. They were talking. Vincent turned up the volume. The microphone was hidden so well the cleaners never found it, though Sal swept the place weekly. The audio was clear. Crystal clear. And what Vincent heard made something dark and cold crystallize in his chest, some cold thing that was older than reason, older than mercy, older than the code he had followed his entire life. Marcus Webb was laughing. The mother doesn't have 2 cents, he said. I can take the kid whenever I want. CPS is already in my pocket. The caseworker owes me money. 1 phone call, she's gone. 1 phone call and the mother gets nothing. Evelyn Blackwell smiled. How much does she owe you now? $65,000, Marcus said. I've been adding fees since the eviction. She'll never pay. That's the whole point. Once she can't pay, the legal system does what I couldn't do myself. Takes the kid. She disappears into the system somewhere, and I rent out that apartment for $2,000 a month to someone who can actually afford it. They clinked glasses. Vincent stopped the video. He sat there in the darkness with the footage frozen on screen, with Marcus Webb's face caught in the middle of his own cruelty, and Vincent felt something shift inside him. Something that had been locked away for a very long time. Something that had no name and needed no name because it had only one answer. Sal could see it in his face. In 12 years, he had learned to read the small movements that meant danger was coming. The way Vincent's hands went still. The way his breathing changed. The way his eyes went darker. Boss, Sal said carefully. What happened? Vincent did not answer. He was standing now. He was walking to the window. Outside, the November rain was turning the city into something dark and drowning. And out there somewhere in that rain, a woman who had nothing and a daughter who was asleep, waiting for a miracle that was not coming. They did not know that Vincent Moretti had just seen their future on a security camera. They did not know that something had shifted in the world. That the rain had brought not mercy but something else. Something that looked like justice. Vincent turned to Sal. "Get the convoy ready," he said. His voice was like venom wrapped in ice. "We are going out." The November rain hammered against the windshield like it was trying to break through glass. Aria Hartley sat frozen behind the steering wheel of her 2008 Honda Civic, the engine dead, the battery drained, the whole world reduced to the sound of water and wind and her own heartbeat thundering in her chest. Lily was in the back seat, 6 years old, soaked through her thin jacket, shivering against the upholstery. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" Lily's voice was so small it almost disappeared into the storm. Aria reached back and squeezed her daughter's hand. "Yes, baby. We are fine. We are always fine." It was a lie. She had told it so many times it had almost become true. The highway stretched empty in both directions. No cars. No lights. Just the sound of rain on metal and the knowledge that the water was rising, that the forecast had warned of flooding, that she had maybe 30 minutes before this shoulder became impassable. She looked down at her lap. $34 in crumpled bills. That was everything. That was all that stood between Lily and absolute nothing. Marcus Webb's ultimatum sat in her mind like a stone, $65,000 in 10 days or she lost everything. Including Lily. 10 days. $8,000 per day. With no job that paid more than minimum wage, no credit, no family willing to help, no miracle large enough to bridge that gap. Her fingers gripped the steering wheel and she closed her eyes. The headlights appeared first as a glow through the rain. Then shapes. 3 black SUVs moving in formation through the downpour, slowing as they approached her disabled car, surrounding her on the highway like sharks circling wounded prey. Her stomach dropped. This was it. This was how women like her disappeared. No witnesses. No questions. Just gone. Aria's hand shook as she locked the doors, knowing it was useless, knowing that locks meant nothing to people who wanted to take things. The rain drummed harder. A man stepped out of the lead SUV, an umbrella already open despite the wind that was tearing it sideways. He was tall, impossibly tall, broad-shouldered in an expensive black suit that probably cost more than everything she owned combined. His face was shadowed, but she could see the line of his jaw, the way he moved with the kind of control that came from absolute certainty that the world would arrange itself according to his will. He tapped on her window. Aria cracked it open 1 inch. Rain sprayed inside, cold and violent. "Your engine is dead." His voice was low, steady, like venom wrapped in ice. "You cannot stay here. The highway floods in November." "I am fine. We are fine." Her voice cracked on the second sentence. The man's eye shifted to the back seat where Lily sat huddled and soaked, her small shoulders trembling. Something flickered across his face. A moment of recognition. Of pain. Of something that looked like understanding. "Sergio, get the car started." He did not look away from Aria. "Sal, call the tow for her vehicle." "You are coming with us." Aria's entire body went rigid. "I am not going anywhere with you." The man crouched slightly so their eyes were level through the cracked window. Rain streamed off his umbrella. "You have 2 choices. Freeze on this highway with your daughter or accept help from a stranger." "I am not asking twice." Something in his tone, not threat, not pity, something else entirely, made her resistance crumble like old paper. She nodded. Sergio, the smaller of the 2 men flanking the vehicle, opened her door with an umbrella already overhead. He lifted Lily gently, speaking to her in a soft voice, settling her into the warmth of the lead SUV. Aria followed, clutching her backpack, everything she owned in the world, reduced to fabric and string. The convoy moved through the flooded streets of New Orleans toward the View's car, toward the narrow streets where the old world and the new world collided in candlelight and shadow. Vincent's restaurant appeared through the rain like a promise. Warm light spilling through windows framed with French shutters. Ivy climbing the brick walls. A hand-painted sign that read Moretti in gold letters that had seen 100 years of rain. He led them through the kitchen entrance, not the front door, and the staff froze. Line cooks mid-motion. A dishwasher suspended over a sink of scalding water. The night manager standing statue still because Vincent Moretti never brought anyone through the back. Never. In the 15 years Sergio had worked for him, he had never seen the boss bring a woman and a child into his inner sanctum. Sergio and Sal exchanged a look that said everything. Vincent gestured toward the private booth in the back corner, the one where he conducted business that was not meant for public knowledge. Sit. You are cold. You need food. Aria hesitated, Lily clinging to her leg like she was afraid to let her mother out of reach. Vincent's expression softened, the hard lines around his mouth easing slightly. The child needs to eat. Let me do this one thing. His voice was different now. Gentler. Like a man trying to soothe a wounded animal. Aria Saturday. Within minutes, the kitchen produced hot bread with steam rising off the crust, pasta with marinara sauce, chicken parmesan that made Lily's eyes widen. A bowl of soup. A glass of milk for the child. Aria tried to refuse but Lily reached for the bread and she could not deny her daughter something warm, something real. They ate in silence while Vincent watched from across the booth, his hands folded on the table, his dark eyes never leaving Aria's face. When Lily fell asleep against her shoulder, her small body finally warm and safe, Vincent finally spoke. Tell me why you were on that highway. Aria looked down at her empty plate. Car trouble. Bad luck. It does not matter. It matters. You are running from something. I am not running. She met his eyes. I have nowhere to run to. The silence stretched between them. Vincent reached for his phone, and for a moment Aria's heart seized because she had learned long ago that men's phones meant danger. But he slid it across the table, stopping just short of her trembling hands. On the screen was a video. Security footage. Two figures in a corner booth, glasses raised, smiles that looked like knives. Do you know this man? Vincent asked quietly. Aria's face went white. Her hand started to shake so violently she could barely pick up the phone. The face on the screen belonged to Marcus Webb. Her landlord. The man who had been systematically destroying her life for 2 years. Where did you get this? My restaurant. 3 weeks ago. He was here with a woman named Evelyn Blackwell. They thought they were in a private corner. They were wrong. Vincent pressed play. The audio was crisp, pristine, capturing every word with terrible clarity. Marcus's voice, 65,000 in 10 days or the girl loses everything. The kid goes to the state. Evelyn's laughter, bright and cruel, how much does she owe you now? I've been adding fees since the eviction. She'll never pay. That's the whole point. Once she can't pay, the legal system does what I couldn't do myself. Takes the kid. She disappears into the system somewhere, and I rent out that apartment for $2,000 a month to someone who can actually afford it. More laughter. More clinking glasses. The video stopped. Aria could not breathe. Her vision blurred. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. Is he your landlord? Yes. The word came out broken. Vincent leaned back slightly, giving her space. How much does he claim you owe? $65,000. I have 10 days. I had an apartment, $1,200 a month, and I paid on time for 2 years, but then he started adding fees, late fees that were not late, damage fees for things that were not damaged, legal fees for paperwork I never signed. When I could not pay, he evicted me. Then he said I owed everything. $65,000. She was crying now, silent tears that she did not bother to wipe away. And if I do not pay, he will call Child Protective Services and take Lily away. She gripped the table. I have $34. I sleep in my car. I wash Lily's hair in gas station bathrooms. I work 43 hours a week, but it is never enough. I am nobody. I have always been nobody. Vincent's jaw tightened until the muscle beneath his skin went rigid. You are not nobody. Aria met his eyes and saw something there that she could not name. Something dangerous and protective all at once, like a blade that could cut either way. Why would you help me? You do not know me. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old wounds. I know desperation. I know what it looks like when predators circle someone who cannot fight back. And I know what it costs to do nothing. He paused, his fingers drumming once on the table. My brother betrayed our family 8 years ago. Sold us to enemies for money and power. I had to choose between mercy and survival. I chose survival. I have lived with that choice every day since. What happened to him? He is gone. And I learned that mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest choice of all. The rain continued outside, turning the city into something dark and drowning. And out there somewhere in that rain, a woman who had nothing and a daughter who needed everything had just met a man who could either save her or destroy her. Neither of them knew yet which it would be. But Vincent Moretti knew exactly what he was about to do. The February night air cuts through the city like a blade wrapped in ice. Aria stands at the railing of the Mississippi River, her fingers gripping cold metal, the black water churning below reflecting the broken pieces of city lights. Her coat is thin. Her breath comes in short gasps. She has been standing here for 7 minutes, though it feels like hours, like days, like a lifetime compressed into the space between one heartbeat and the next. She thinks about Lily. She thinks about the drawing, the crayon rainbow, bright and crooked, with 2 stick figures holding hands. She thinks about what her daughter will become if she grows up without a mother. She thinks about whether Lily would be better off, safer, raised by someone else. Someone who could afford her. Someone who could protect her. Someone who was not broken. Her hands loosen on the railing. Then her phone buzzes. The sound cuts through the silence like a gunshot. A text from Lily's friend's mother. Lily made you a drawing. She says it is a rainbow because rainbows mean hope. Aria pulls up the photo. The screen glows in the darkness. 2 stick figures. A rainbow. In the corner, written in shaky letters, her daughter's handwriting, Mommy and me happy. Aria's breath catches. She steps back from the railing. Her legs are shaking so hard she nearly collapses onto the concrete. She pulls out her phone with trembling hands and dials Vincent's number. He answers on the first ring. Aria? His voice is immediate, alert, like he has been waiting for this call, expecting it, prepared for the moment when she would finally break. Where are you? He asks before she can speak. She tells him. Her voice is barely a whisper, fractured like something glass. 20 minutes later, the black SUV pulls up to the riverside. The engine cuts off. Vincent steps out into the February cold without a coat, without hesitation, moving toward her like she is the only thing that matters in the entire city. He sees her face and stops asking questions. He removes his own coat, cashmere worth more than everything she owns combined, and wraps it around her shoulders. The fabric still carries his warmth. He leads her to the vehicle without speaking. Sometimes kindness does not need words. At the restaurant, in the private booth where everything began, Aria tells him everything. Marcus showing up drunk. The threats about calling Child Protective Services. The moment at the river when she could not think of a single reason to keep breathing. Vincent listens, his face carved from stone, his fingers still except for one, drumming against the table like a heartbeat counting down to something. When she finishes, the silence stretches between them. Vincent picks up his phone. Sergio. It is time. The raid happens at dawn on February 14th. 12 men in black move through Marcus Webb's office building in the Garden District like ghosts, like a perfectly synchronized machine. They do not break down doors. They have keys, provided by a building inspector Vincent owns, a property manager whose signature appears on every lease in the Garden District. Marcus arrives at 7:03 a.m., his usual time, his hands holding coffee from his usual cafe. He walks into his office and stops. Everything is gone. The computers are gone. The filing cabinets are gone. The documents, the receipts, the 43 files containing the names of his victims, all gone. The walls are bare. The desk is empty. It is like walking into a tomb of his own making. Marcus staggers backward. His coffee cup falls, shatters on the marble floor. Brown liquid spreads across the ground like blood. Vincent steps from the shadows of the adjoining room. What is this? Where is everything? Marcus's voice cracks like his hands are cracking, like his entire body is beginning to fracture from the inside out. Justice, Vincent says. Marcus grabs the edge of his desk. You cannot do this. I have lawyers. I have connections. I have? You have nothing. Vincent's voice is quiet, which makes it more terrifying. Every fabricated fee. Every illegal eviction. Every threat you made to a woman who had committed no crime is documented. I have 8 years of records. 43 victims. Bank statements showing exactly where the money went. And footage. Vincent holds up a tablet. The screen flickers to life. Marcus and Evelyn's voices fill the room, captured 3 months ago in the restaurant's private booth. Their own words, playing back like a curse. Evelyn, these desperate single mothers are gold mines. They will pay anything to keep their children. Marcus, the more desperate, the easier they are to control. Evelyn, once they are trapped in the system, they cannot escape. Marcus collapses into his desk chair, trembling like a wounded animal backed into a corner. His face has gone the color of ash. What do you want? He whispers. I want you to understand what it feels like to be hunted. The FBI arrives at 7:28 a.m. Federal agents swarm the building. Marcus Webb is arrested on the spot, handcuffs clicking around wrists that are now useless, powerless, small. 16 counts. Fraud. Extortion. Conspiracy. Bail set at $2 million. He cannot pay. He sits in a federal holding cell and realizes that his empire, built on the desperation of others, has collapsed in the span of a single night. 2 weeks later, Evelyn Blackwell's arrest happens at her own charity gala. The event is held at the ballroom of the St. Louis Hotel, glittering with 200 guests in evening wear. Evelyn stands at the podium in a dress that costs more than Aria earned in 5 years, diamonds at her throat, her smile perfect and practiced. She is giving a speech about helping the homeless. We must never forget those less fortunate than ourselves, she says to the crowd, and the words are venom dressed in silk. The federal agents walk through the crowd at 9:27 p.m. They move with purpose. They move with the weight of evidence and recorded confessions and 8 years of destroyed lives. Evelyn sees them coming. Her speech trails off. The lead agent reaches the podium. Evelyn Blackwell, you are under arrest for racketeering, fraud, conspiracy to commit extortion, and money laundering. The cameras are rolling. The television crews have been tipped off. The footage captures everything in devastating clarity, Evelyn in her diamonds and her arrogance, handcuffed like a common criminal, her face collapsing as her carefully constructed empire crumbles in real time on live television. Her business partners issue statements disavowing her by midnight. Her properties are seized. Her bank accounts frozen. She faces 40 years in federal prison. The footage goes viral within 2 hours. By morning, every news outlet in the state has run the story. By the end of the week, her name is synonymous with predatory greed. At the restaurant, Vincent and Aria watch the news coverage together. They sit in the private booth, the same booth where she first told him she had nothing. A plate of untouched food sits between them. On the screen, Evelyn's arrest plays for the 100th time. Aria's hands are steady. Her shoulders are no longer hunched with the weight of invisible chains. "It is done," Vincent says. Aria looks at him. Really looks at him. She sees the man who answered his phone at midnight. The man who gave his coat. The man who did not ask for gratitude or payment or ownership in return. "Why did you do all this?" she asks. Vincent is quiet for a long moment. Outside, the afternoon light has turned the Mississippi into something golden, something alive. "Because mercy is not weakness," he says. "And because you deserved someone to fight for you. Not because you were strong enough to fight for yourself. But because fighting alone should never have been your burden." Aria reaches across the table and takes his hand. His fingers close around hers like he is afraid she might disappear if he does not hold tight. "What happens now?" she whispers. Vincent's eyes hold hers. "Now we begin." The candlelight flickers across Vincent Moretti's face as he watches the woman across from him. Aria Hartley sits with her hands folded on the table, steady now in a way she was not 6 months ago. The private booth in the back of his restaurant, the same booth where she first told him she had nothing, feels different tonight. Sacred, almost. Outside, November rain taps against the windows like 1,000 soft accusations. The Mississippi flows past, dark and gold under the city lights. A waiter places wine before them and withdraws without a sound. Vincent does not touch his glass. He is looking at Aria the way a man looks at something he cannot quite believe he is allowed to have. "You testified today," he says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath. "In front of the Senate committee." "I did." Aria's fingers trace the rim of her wine glass. C-SPAN broadcast it live. By noon, 40,000 people had shared the clip. By evening, 80,000. "What did you tell them?" "The truth." She looks up at him. "About Marcus. About Evelyn. About the 8 years I spent invisible, counting pennies while they counted my desperation like a currency they could spend. I told them about the foreclosure notice. The threats. The night on the highway when I had $34 to my name and a daughter sleeping in a broken car." Vincent leans forward slightly. The gold watch on his wrist catches the candlelight, worth more than 6 months of what Aria used to make as a waitress. But Aria does not see the watch anymore. She sees the man. The senators listened, she continues. 2 of them stood up and applauded before the hearing ended. Policy change proposals are already being drafted. Housing reform bills. Tenant protection legislation. When I walked out of that chamber, there were cameras everywhere. My face is on the news. My name is being discussed in boardrooms and living rooms. You are no longer invisible. No, Aria says. I am not. The silence between them stretches like a held breath. Rain drums against the glass. Somewhere in the restaurant, silverware chimes softly. Vincent reaches across the table. His hand is scarred, the scars of a man who built his world through force and will, and he opens his palm to her. Aria takes it without hesitation. I need to tell you something, he says. Something I should have told you the night I found you on that highway. Tell me. When I saw you in that car, shivering with your daughter asleep beside you, I saw my brother. Vincent's grip on her hand tightened slightly. I saw the same desperation in your eyes that I saw in his before he betrayed our family. He was drowning. He made a choice. I made a different one that night. I chose to pull you out of the water instead of letting you sink. Aria's breath catches. Why? Because I wanted to prove that desperation does not have to end in destruction. That a person can be broken and still choose to heal instead of breaking others. He pauses. Outside, the rain softens to a whisper. Because I realized something in those early weeks when you would not accept my help, when you insisted on working double shifts and refused to let me pay your rent. You were not desperate because you were weak. You were desperate because you were fighting alone, and no one should have to fight that hard. Aria's eyes glisten. You gave me back my life. No. Vincent's voice is fierce now, a blade cutting through the tenderness. You gave yourself your life back. I just made sure the people who tried to destroy you could not touch you while you did it. I removed the obstacles. You climbed out of the pit. You testified. You stood in front of cameras and told your story. You did that. Not me. Aria stands up. She moves around the table and sits beside him in the booth, close enough that their shoulders almost touch. She takes his face in both her hands. I am not desperate anymore, she whispers. I am not broken. I am whole. And I am here because I choose to be. Not because I need you. Because I want you. Something breaks open in Vincent's chest. For a man whose entire empire is built on control, on certainty, on knowing exactly what will happen next, this moment of vulnerability is terrifying. His hands tremble slightly as they find her waist. I spent 8 years believing mercy was weakness, he says against her hair. You taught me it was strength. And you taught me I was worth saving. Aria pulls back just far enough to look at him. In the candlelight, her face is no longer marked by exhaustion and fear. It is marked by light. Even when I could not save myself. They sit like that for a long moment, two people who found each other in a storm, who rebuilt something neither thought possible. The rain continues outside, softer now, the neon reflections on wet pavement glowing like promises kept. When Vincent stands, he takes both her hands and pulls her up with him. The restaurant has closed around them, Sergio and Sal are long gone, the kitchen dark, the waiters dismissed hours ago. It is only the two of them and the sound of rain. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small velvet box. Aria's hand flies to her mouth. Aria Hartley, Vincent says, and his voice is not the voice of a mafia boss now. It is the voice of a man who has nothing left to lose because he has already found everything that matters. Will you marry me? Aria nods, unable to speak. The ring he slides onto her finger is simple, white gold, a single diamond that catches the candlelight like a star. It is not ostentatious. It is not a declaration of wealth. It is a declaration of presence, of choice, of two people deciding to stop being alone. 3 blocks away, in a federal prison cell, Marcus Webb sits on a narrow bunk in an orange jumpsuit. His hands are not manicured anymore. They are calloused from cleaning floors, from years of hard labor that will stretch into decades. He thinks about the night on the highway when he believed he had won. He thinks about the woman whose life he tried to destroy. And he knows now that he lost. Evelyn Blackwell sits in a different facility, behind different walls. Her diamonds are gone. Her designer clothes replaced with standard-issue grey. The society women who once called her friend have disavowed her entirely. When her name appears in the news now, it is followed by words like predatory, corrupt, evil. She will spend the next 40 years in this cell, watching the world move forward without her, forgotten. But Aria does not think about them anymore. She thinks about the man beside her, about the boy, no, the young man, who grew up believing that power meant cruelty, and who learned too late that power means nothing without mercy. Months pass. Aria stands in front of a restaurant full of people she has trained, servers and bartenders and hosts whose lives she has touched with kindness instead of cruelty. She is the assistant manager now, and she runs the place with a gentleness that confuses Vincent's older staff. They are used to fear. They are learning what respect actually means. In the apartment above the restaurant, Lily, who is 7 years old now, with her mother's eyes and her stepfather's courage, shows Vincent a drawing she made in school. It is a family portrait, 3 figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. That is us, Lily says. She does not say it with uncertainty. She does not ask if Vincent will leave. She knows he will not. Mama says we are a family now. That families stay together. Vincent looks at the drawing, and something in his chest cracks open. He has ruled an empire. He has made men bow. He has commanded respect through fear and force. But this small girl, drawing him into her world with absolute certainty, has given him something no empire could ever grant. He frames the drawing and hangs it in his office. Sergio sees it and says nothing, but Marco, the lieutenant who brought Aria to the restaurant that first night, smiles. He has seen this coming for months. He has watched his boss soften in ways he never thought possible. The wedding happens on a Saturday in April, 1 year after the rain. Aria wears white. Lily serves as flower girl, scattering petals with absolute seriousness. Vincent's men fill the church in their dark suits, and every single one of them is crying, though they will never admit it. When Aria says her vows, she speaks about the night on the highway. She speaks about the prayer card she carried in her pocket for 8 years, the one her grandmother gave her before she died. She speaks about how she thought that prayer had gone unanswered, until the night a man in a black coat appeared in the rain. I do not believe in miracles, Aria says, her voice steady and clear. I believe in choices. I believe in the choice to be kind when you could be cruel. I believe in the choice to help when you could walk away. I believe in the choice to love when love is terrifying. Vincent Moretti made that choice. And my life changed forever. Outside the church, the New Orleans sun is bright and warm. The rain has passed. The sky is clearing. That evening, as Aria and Vincent and Lily walk through the French Quarter, the three of them holding hands, the city transforms around them. Neon signs glow pink and blue. Street musicians play saxophones that sound like heartbreak and hope mixed together. Other families pass them, tourists and locals, and no one sees anything unusual about this family of three moving through the crowd. But Vincent sees it. He sees his daughter, because that is what Lily is now, his daughter, with his name on every document that matters, pointing at a street vendor's cotton candy. He sees his wife looking up at him with a smile that says she still cannot quite believe this is real. After the rain, the sky clears, Vincent says softly. And sometimes miracles come from the most unexpected places. They do, Aria agrees. Lily tugs their hands. Can we get ice cream? Yes, Vincent says. We can get whatever you want. Because that is what mercy looks like. Not grand gestures. Not empire building. Not the destruction of enemies, though that happened too. Mercy looks like a man who knows how to command armies, choosing instead to serve his family. It looks like a woman who learned to stand alone, learning instead to stand beside someone. It looks like a child drawing pictures of a family that will never be broken. If this story moved your heart today, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to know that mercy is not weakness. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is help someone stand back up. Comment below and tell me, what would you have done if you were Aria? What would you have done if you were Vincent? Every comment you leave matters. Every share helps us reach someone who needs this story today. We wish you health, happiness, and days filled with peace. No matter how hard life gets, remember this, after the rain, the sky clears. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We will see you in the next video. Goodbye.